Hey there, this is Natalie, and with Season 2 of The Rising of the Shield Hero set to arrive in the spring 2022 anime season, I'm here to recap what happened in Season 1 to help refresh your memory. Shield Hero Season 1 was 25 episodes long, with Episode 1 being double length, so there are a lot of events to get through. The recap will be in 3 parts, with this first video covering episodes 1 to 8, which adapt volumes 1 and 2 of the light novels, though this will be an anime-only recap, so I won't be adding in anything from the novels that wasn't shown in the anime. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when the next 2 parts are up, as well as for more Shield Hero content once Season 2 is airing. So, the story starts with our protagonist Iwatani Naofumi having a dream about the world he would very soon be isekai'd to. We learn that Naofumi is a college student and that he doesn't have to work as well as study because his parents pay for everything in gratitude for him stopping his younger brother falling in with a bad crowd. He's fairly comfortable with his life, but that's all about to change. Naofumi finds a mysterious book in the library that he simply takes for an interesting fantasy novel, and which appears to be about 4 cardinal heroes: the sword, spear and bow heroes, and of course the shield hero. As he flips through the book, he notices that strangely, the shield heroes section is full of blank pages, and then isekai happens. The book seems to have been part of a ritual to summon 4 people from another world to take on the roles of the heroes for real. Along with Naofumi, 3 other people have also been summoned: Motoyasu, the spear hero, Ren, the sword hero, and Itsuki, the bow hero. The 4 of them are brought before the king, who's named Alt Cray Melromark, and he explains that they've been summoned to fight waves of monsters that arrive at fixed times, predicted by a magical dragon hourglass. The other 3 heroes are a lot more confident about the situation than Naofumi, who at this point is fairly bewildered, and it also seems that the king has some kind of dislike for the shield hero, showing far less interest in him than in the others. The 4 heroes are given some time to talk alone, and they quickly realise that they're all from different versions of Japan, where history has played out a little differently. The 3 other heroes have all, in their own worlds, played a video game that works exactly like things do in this new isekai world, though it has different names in each of their versions of Japan. Naofumi, however, has never played anything that's an exact match for this world, and so while he's familiar with isekai and fantasy tropes from light novels, he can tell he's at a clear disadvantage. It seems too that summoned heroes are actually supposed to know how the world works from playing games, like the spear, sword and bow hero have, and rumours quickly spread that Naofumi, as well as being the shield hero, which is ostensibly the weakest one, is also ignorant of the world around him. Someone was eavesdropping on their conversation. The heroes appear before the king again and are told they have a month before the first wave that they'll have to fight, and that they have to form parties and go adventuring to level up, ready to take it on. They're also told that they can't form a party together, because their legendary weapons have a negative effect on each other and will only level up properly if they work separately. Some adventurers are asked to choose which hero's party they would like to join, and nobody chooses Naofumi. This is going to be a huge problem for him, because the shield hero cannot equip any other type of weapon, and he only has defensive and support capabilities. Without someone else to deal damage for him, he can't grind up experience, even by defeating fairly weak monsters. But then, a character who I'm sure nobody has forgotten from Season 1 steps forward, and says that she'll join Naofumi. At this point we only know her as an adventurer named Myne, who Naofumi had noticed and admired for her definitely only outer beauty when he first arrived. He understandably thinks he's saved now, and the heroes each go off to start their adventuring together with their new parties. Myne is at first very nice to Naofumi and persuades him to equip her with expensive gear from the limited budget he was given, explaining that it will pay for itself very quickly as she'll be able to kill stronger monsters. All seems to be going well until they have dinner together at the inn they'll be staying at, and Myne seems weirdly keen to get Naofumi to drink some wine. He says he doesn't like alcohol and keeps refusing, and Myne interestingly points out that they live in a matriarchy, and turning down a drink from a woman would be considered very rude. This seems strange given so far we and Naofumi have been led to believe they're in a kingdom ruled over by the king, who we've already seen, but it'll all make sense later. Naofumi goes up to bed and he's happy about things, though he does stash some of his remaining coins in his shield, which he says is out of habit. The next morning though, he wakes up to find all of his new gear and his other money has been stolen, and there are guards waiting to arrest him. Initially, he's worried about Myne, but when he's brought in front of the king again, Myne is now hiding behind her original preferred hero, the spear hero Motoyasu, and making a big performance of saying that Naofumi tried to take advantage of her the night before. Everyone believes her, and the king even talks about executing Naofumi. Naofumi angrily asks why they don't just send him home and summon someone else, since they clearly don't want him here, but the king says that new heroes can't be summoned until all 4 cardinal heroes are dead, and that they can't go home until after they've fought off the waves. This marks the real start of Naofumi's story in this world, as he has to find a way to survive and be able to level up and fight while having nothing, and being hated by everyone around him. The weapon merchant who sold him the gear that Myne stole does take some pity on him and give him some clothes, so he sets out to try and fight some very low-level monsters by himself. The monsters he's able to fight are called orange balloons, and they're weak by adventurers' standards, but they do latch on and chew on you. Naofumi quickly realises that his skills as the shield hero mean this doesn't hurt or damage him. He kills as many as he can and goes back to town to sell their remains, but the merchant offers him an incredibly bad price, just because everyone hates Naofumi. But Naofumi opens up his cloak to reveal he has an orange balloon monster inside it, chomping harmlessly away at him, and he uses it to threaten the merchant into offering the same price he'd offered a previous customer. He will use these orange balloon monsters to his advantage several times when he needs to. With the money he gets, he immediately repays the weapons merchant for the clothes he gave him. After a while of trying to level up on his own, Naofumi is approached by a shady guy who turns out to be a slave trader. Naofumi is persuaded that a slave could fight for him, but most importantly, with everyone in the kingdom seemingly against him, Naofumi has become quite paranoid, and the slave trader assures him that a slave wouldn't be able to lie to him or betray him because of the magic used to bind a slave to their master. He's shown a very strong slave that he can't afford, and he demonstrates to the slave trader that he does have some sense when it comes to negotiation, which the slave trader seems to like. He ends up buying Raphtalia, who is at this point very sick and suffering from nightmares. He buys her some clothes and a knife from the weapons dealer, who doesn't approve of him having a slave, but is still nicer to him than most characters. They hunt monsters together, and he teaches Raphtalia that she needs to kill them for him. Naofumi learns that his XP goes up when Raphtalia makes kills because she's in his party, and realises Myne had never formed a party with him. They eat, and Naofumi, who can also gather medicinal herbs and grind medicine to sell, also gives her medicine for her illness. He also buys her a ball to play with. They're beginning to bond, but Raphtalia still experiences nightmares. They then head to a village where they should be able to mine some valuable ore, and are told that the caves have some dangerous monsters in them. Naofumi unlocks some new shields that are useful for mining, and he thinks that this could be another way that he can grind money. In the cave, they're attacked by a dog monster, which causes Raphtalia to freak out. Her parents were killed during the first wave by a similar monster, and sacrificed themselves to save her. Naofumi encourages her to fight so that they can both survive, but he doesn't force her using the slave crest. Raphtalia realises she doesn't want Naofumi to die, and she slays the beast. They continue to grind and level up, and Raphtalia has grown physically as well, though Naofumi doesn't notice this and keeps treating her as a child. He'll learn later that demi-humans grow as they level up, rather than over time, and so even though it's only been a couple of weeks, because Raphtalia has been working hard to level up, she's now become a young woman. They then get new gear befitting their levels and wonder when exactly the first wave they have to fight will come. They learn that they can actually find out by visiting the Dragon Hourglass, so they do that and get into a bickering match with the other heroes and their parties. When the wave arrives, they're teleported to the location under attack, and it's just outside Ryut, the village they visited to collect ore. The other heroes aim straight for the boss, but Naofumi realises that nobody's protecting the villagers or helping them to evacuate, so he and Raphtalia do that. The Royal Knights eventually arrive to provide some backup, but they don't care about the village or about the shield hero, so they indiscriminately firebomb the site. Naofumi continues to protect people from the village, while the other heroes kill the boss of the wave, a giant chimera, and end the fight. The villagers in Ryut are very grateful to Naofumi, and will remain his allies from now on. Plus, Raphtalia is happy that they were able to prevent some children becoming orphans in that village, after her own experience with the first wave. Back in the capital, there's a celebration for defeating the wave, and of course everyone is acting like a whole clown, and Naofumi isn't having fun. Motoyasu, the spear hero, is offended to learn that Raphtalia is Naofumi's slave, and challenges Naofumi to a duel, saying that if he wins, Raphtalia has to be freed. Naofumi doesn't get anything if he wins, so is keen to refuse the duel, but the king appears and orders Naofumi to take part anyway. Naofumi has acquired a lot of different shields by now, and also still keeps orange balloons under his cloak, and using these to trap and chip away at Motoyasu, it seems like he actually might win. But then Myne cheats and uses magic, allowing Motoyasu to win. As Myne gloats and the majority of the audience ignore Naofumi's claims that she cheated, the king reveals that Myne is actually his daughter, and therefore the princess. Her name is actually Malti, which, as we all know, is a perfectly normal name that lots of people have. Naofumi realises that the king has been in on things from the start, and that everything has been a setup ever since he arrived here. As they take Raphtalia and forcibly remove her slave crest, a dark mist begins to emanate from his shield, and in his anger and despair, a new series of shield called Curse Series is unlocked. But Naofumi, in his angered state, doesn't notice that Raphtalia is fighting back against Motoyasu. The sword hero Ren and bow hero Itsuki, who were watching in the audience, also arrive alongside Raphtalia and accuse Myne of cheating. Raphtalia goes to Naofumi's side now, but he can still only see her in her child form and can only believe that she's come to gloat. She tells him that his shield has saved her life many times, and that she believes him that he's innocent of the things he's rumoured to have done. She gives him an encouraging speech, saying she wants to be his sword and stay with him. These words have the right effect, and now he sees her as she really is, but he's confused as to how the girl in front of him, who looks fairly close to his own age, can be Raphtalia. She'll explain it the next morning. Next we see the Queen for the first time, and she's being briefed by a spy. It's clear she doesn't approve of the way the shield hero is being treated. Naofumi and the other heroes then go to receive their rewards for defeating the waves, with Motoyasu being offered the most, and Naofumi being told he would only get the base salary of 500 silvers, which the king also tried to take away from him as a fee for removing Raphtalia's crest. Ren and Itsuki, the bow and sword heroes, stick up for Naofumi, again saying that Myne cheated and that the crest was removed of the king's own accord. In the end, Naofumi gets his 500 silvers and is happy just to leave the place. They return to the slave trader because Raphtalia wants to get her slave crest reinstated. Naofumi thinks that she's proven her loyalty and there is no need for this, but she wants to be sure he believes her and trusts her in the future. When they're there, they also buy a monster egg from a kind of monster gacha thing the slave trader is running. Naofumi likes the idea of having a monster to fight by his side, and if he's lucky, he might also get one that can be used as a steed. Next, he visits the medicine shop owner who he's been selling potions and herbs to, and he gives him some tools and recipes. He then visits the witch who runs the magic shop. She had relatives in Ryut village and is grateful to Naofumi for saving them, so she rewards him with some magic books. He can't read the local language yet, but is happy to study them. She also tests him and Raphtalia for magic affinities, and says that his are for healing and support magic, and Raphtalia's are for light and dark, meaning she could focus on illusion magic. They decide to head to Ryut, where they're a lot more welcome, and when they're there, the egg hatches. It seems to be a Filolial, which is a large bird that can be used to pull carriages and to ride. It's only a chick, and they think it's pretty cute. Naofumi names it Filo for simplicity, which is still a better name than Malty or Melty. But now, Myne and Motoyasu have shown up in the village, doing their best impression of Team Rocket, and are trying to announce Motoyasu as the new lord of the village, and impose ridiculously high taxes for entering and leaving it. Naofumi ends up being drawn into racing against Motoyasu riding on Filo to determine the fate of the village. Predictably, Myne and their entourage try to cheat, but Filo is extremely fast, and Naofumi wins. Filo spontaneously transforms from what would be a normal-looking Filolial, which is some sort of kawaii interpretation of an ostrich, to what will be her usual big round owl-type form, which Myne uses to say Naofumi was cheating. But the spy-type characters we saw with the Queen have appeared, and hold Myne to task for all of the traps that are still left around the racecourse. Naofumi is rewarded with a pass to trade without tolls between villages, and with a wagon, which Filo had indicated she really wanted. They camp outside the village, having to stop because Raphtalia gets carsick. When Naofumi wakes up though, Filo seems to be gone, and there's a blonde lolly with wings on his lap. This is, of course, still Filo, but Filolials normally can't speak, let alone turn into human forms. So after stopping by the weapons shop to get some clothes for her, Naofumi takes Filo back to the slave trader to try to figure out exactly what she is. He says that flocks of Filolials usually have a king or queen, and this is probably what Filo is. He fits her with a high-grade slave crest. Naofumi needs to find some clothes for Filo that won't be destroyed when she changes form, which his usual dealer, the weapons shop owner, who's called Erhard by the way, says is well above his pay grade. He visits a tailor who says they'll need magic thread, so he goes back to the witch at the magic shop. She can do it, but she needs some time to get a special crystal for her magical loom or whatever. So in the meantime, Naofumi and Raphtalia decide to go and do some trading to try and recoup their losses, with Filo pulling the wagon. They run into a guy who needs to be transported to a village to give medicine to some old people, and Naofumi gives him a ride on Filo to get there fast, and also uses his medicine skills to make the treatment more effective. Naofumi realises that he can charge for transport and healing and such, as well as trading goods, and they do a good trade for a while. Then, when they're transporting an accessory merchant, they are attacked by bandits. Raphtalia and Filo manage to beat them all up, despite their bodyguard having been class upgraded, a term that is new to Naofumi. When the bandits are tied up, he says he'll drop them off with the police, but they've recognised him as the shield hero and say the police would believe them over him anyway. In response, Naofumi says Filo can just eat them. She has a huge appetite. The bandits change their tune and end up giving Naofumi everything they have, And also, the merchant they were targeting helps him out with new connections and training in accessory crafting in thanks. He also gains access to contacts with gossip about what the other heroes are doing, and rights to mine for valuable ore in an abandoned temple. He realises he could get the crystal the magic shop owner needs to make Filo's magic thread here, so he collects her and they head there. They find that something that had been sealed there by the alchemist who'd used the temple as his base was now missing, which is a bit worrying. But they head in to get the crystal and encounter some new monsters, which use illusion magic to make Naofumi hear the voices of Raphtalia and Filo talking about betraying him. He knows it's false though, as he's become far less paranoid since the duel. They fight and beat the boss of the cave, which is a monster called a Nue, and they get what they came for, allowing the magic shop witch to make the thread from Filo's mana, that's then made into clothes that can transform with her. Next, they find out what happened to that sealed item that went missing, as they visit a village that's overrun by plants. Motoyasu had brought them the sealed item, which was a seed that had a warning next to it from the alchemist who'd made it that it should never be used. Naofumi and his party defeat the plant monsters, and by upgrading his shield using parts of them, he gains the ability to modify plants, allowing him to modify the seeds and produce safer options to end the famine. Next, he gets a job making a delivery to a hot springs episode. Here, Raphtalia and Filo get a bit competitive about bringing a gift back to Naofumi, but end up coming together and getting over their mutual jealousy somewhat. Then they learn of a village that needs a lot of medicine, so they head there to sell some, and it turns out they have to clear up the mess left behind by the sword hero this time. Ren had slayed a dragon here, but because he was thinking like a video game, where monster corpses don't stick around after they've been looted, the decaying body of the dragon is causing the nearby villagers to get sick. It's also caused smaller monsters to mutate, meaning nobody wants to go up there and take care of it. Naofumi, Raphtalia and Filo go to destroy the corpse, but end up having to fight the dragon in a zombie form. Filo is fighting well, but she ends up being swallowed whole by the dragon, sending Naofumi into despair again. He sees a glitched message from the Curse series shield asking him if he seeks power, and a new rage shield activates as he remembers all of the stuff in this world so far that has severely ticked him off. Raphtalia is able to snap him out of this rage mode, but she's very badly injured from the fight and from burns from the rage shield. The zombie dragon is still coming after them, and Naofumi knows that if he uses the rage shield to fight it, he'll end up incinerating everything. But then the dragon keels over, and Filo claws her way out from inside of it. She was alive the whole time, and even ate a magic crystal she found inside the dragon, which was probably its magic core. She gives some of this crystal to Naofumi, and he lets his shield absorb it, unlocking something that he isn't at a high enough level to use yet. He also notices that the shield he'd used there, the rage shield, isn't part of his normal upgrade tree, which disturbs him. Raphtalia is now in need of high-grade holy water because of the curse damage she sustained, so they keep working to raise the funds to buy it, and then head back to the capital. And that's the first 8 episodes summarised. Once again, please consider subscribing for the next parts of this recap, as well as for more content about Shield Hero, along with all of my existing content about Mushoku Tensei, ReZero, and other anime and light novel series. Thanks as always to my supporters on Patreon, and to everyone who helps me out by subscribing and watching my videos. Thanks for watching this one, and I hope to see you again very soon for part 2.